Welcome. You've splash landed into this Prosecco-laden podcast, straight into the woo-woo pool with the crew of Ohm-g. We're just a simple group of tragically imperfect and highly empathic BFFs, exploring a wide range of atypical topics with humor, grace, and curiosity. This is Ohm-g. Welcome. Today's special guest is the lovely Melissa Sparrow, a teacher, mentor, Akashic Records reader, and energy healer. We will be talking about grief, what she's learned, and how she helps her clients navigate it. You're here with the crew of Ohm-g,
the podcast. Welcome back, guys, and welcome back one of our all-time favorite guests, all-around Canadian badass, Melissa Sparrow.
Yeah.
Yay! Well, hello, guys. It's lovely to be here again with you all.
We're so happy to have you, Melissa. This is Lynn.
This is Brenda here.
This is Camille.
And Chandra.
And Aaron.
And I'm going to kick this one off real quick because Melissa, if you haven't heard the story about how I met her, it was through the Ohm-g podcast. And I have had not only a reading, a couple of them, some healings, a couple of those too, because she's that good, y'all. But also, Melissa taught me to read the Akashic Records. And she also did a light language class that I attended. And I recently just finished the intro to healing class that she did. And she's an amazing teacher. And I'm just so happy to see her today.
I'm so glad that you're gleaning from her knowledge, because then you kind of share what you're learning with us, like working on us, doing our Akashic Records. It's awesome.
My little guinea pig family.
Exactly.
Every healer and reader needs one of those for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk to you today about grief. I know that your mother passed away recently. And, I'm sure that, like, as a reader, you help people through those things. Like, you help them navigate and connect and heal from loss. But then when you are dealing with it for yourself, healing from your own loss, how do you process that? Like, spirit's there, that they're in spirit, they're around you. They haven't really gone anywhere, but still there's the physical loss of the physical person and all of the things that come with that. So if you could just maybe speak on like how you are navigating the waters as a healer, a medium, a energy worker.
Right. Well, first off, I think there's a misconception out there that mediums grieve differently than others. And that's just false, because I'm human, right? And as much as I can connect with my mom in the spirit realm, it's not the same as having her physically here, right? We are human and we are programmed to crave from the ones we love the most their physical presence, right? Their voice, their smell, their mannerisms, their love for us, the way in which they show it. And so I began to really walk through the grieving process. And I have to say, I was humbled by it because, yes, I have helped many people walk through their own grief and provided comfort and validation for them through my readings. But it's completely different to be walking through on my own and trying to navigate the grief and trying to connect with my mom, right? My mom gave me a very beautiful parting gift in that she asked me, that was one of her last things that she said was help me. And I knew instinctively she needed me to help her cross over. And so it was a beautiful experience to do that for her. But at the same time, I leave her in my grandfather's hands and then that's it. She's took her last breath and now she's gone. And so there's like all of us, we have these questions of, are they okay? Like, where are they? Do they need us? There's all that worry. And that's why I began to find ways where I could try and move through my grief while at the same time trying to connect and have conversations with my mom. And it can be really difficult because when we're grieving, we're resonating in that really low, dense, heavy frequency, right? And it's really difficult for us to be able to connect with our loved ones and for them to reach us when we're in that state of frequency. So that's why a lot of times people will come to me and look for an opportunity to connect and to see if they're okay.
That was one of my questions. When you're in that grieving process, do you feel like your connection with spirit with them or with connecting for other people? Do you feel like that's diminished because of the grieving process? Like, because that is like really heavy emotions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you bypass that to work with other clients?
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting. This was a whole other experience and lesson for me was that, of course I rescheduled a lot of my clients right away because I knew that I wasn't in the right consciousness state of mind to be reading. I wouldn't be doing my ethical duty to them by going ahead with their sessions. And you'd be surprised, you guys, at the number of clients that didn't understand that.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I was emailing them, letting them know that I'm sitting vigil with my dying mother at the moment. And I'm going to unfortunately have to reschedule. And they were angry with me.
Wow.
Oh,
That's really sad.
It was. And I'm saying this because it's the truth of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people misunderstand the fact that, yes, I'm a medium. Yes, I can connect with spirit, but I'm human and I have life outside of that, right? I'm just like everybody else. I feel emotions deeply.
This is Chandra. I think the flip side of that is it is a testament to how important the work that you, Brenda, Lynn are doing as energy workers and mediums is people need that hope that much that they can't find it in themselves to have the compassion they need to have in that moment. Like that's how much they need their own support and need their own healing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how important the work that you're doing is for people.
Yeah, that's very true. I'd never thought of it from that perspective.
It's ironic, but yes.
yeah. I'd never looked at it like that.
Yeah, it's true. They kind of lose perspective, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So I did take some time off. When I did return to sessions, I had to prepare a lot more than I would normally in the sense of like, in order to connect, I know you guys have talked about this, but we have to raise our frequency to the level of source, spirit, and that beautiful connection. So when I did return, I leaned on my spirit team more than ever and my angels to help me. And thankfully, they did. And so I was okay. In fact, that was one of my happy places was to be in session. And because when I'm there, I'm not really Melissa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I take on, my higher self persona. It was probably a healing space for me too, really.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because you're working in that higher frequency. Did you feel like you received healing yourself during those times?
Yes. And the other thing that was really cool, you guys, is that I began right away because I call in, I have my 3 biggies now that I work with. Before Mom passed, it was my grandfather and my nephew, Micah. And I would always call them in when I'm doing my ritual before session. And I would see them walk through, and my grandfather's on my right and Micah's on my left. And I began right away to call in my mom and invite her to join me. And it was really cool because the first time she walked through, she came through, I saw her, and then I saw this beautiful white dove, and it landed on this golden perch. And that's her sign that she's here, So she flies in, sits, and then I know she's in session. So it was also a time for me to be able to spend time with her. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's super sweet.
This is this is something that I've noticed with working with the person that I work with and her students, is that when she's going through something, the questions and the comments and notes that she gets from her students end up being things she needs to think about or that she needs to hear. When you were like kind of in the deepest part of that recovery from that loss, did you feel like were there a lot of situations where you were helping a client, but in that moment you were like, oh, I needed that message too?
Oh, absolutely. Like every validation I would give them rang home for me,
Mm-hmm.
because when loved ones come through, they like to talk about their transition. They like to tell you what it was like. They like to show you how beautiful it was, that they weren't in any pain, and to give you that comfort in knowing that they're okay. And then they, of course, begin to give you such detailed validation of your everyday life, that they're with you. And so that is further comfort to know that they're not really gone. It's just that they're in a dimension or space where, unfortunately, our human eye can't see them, but they're there because they validate such specific things. Like, for example, they'll talk about a song that was just playing on their radio, or the fact that they are in their favorite chair, sipping their tea and reading their book, right? Really specific things that they go, okay, this has to be true. They have to still be alive in some way, right? And so for me, every validation gave me hope that my mom too was still energetically here with me. Yeah.
So that kind of leads into my question, Melissa. This is Aaron. When you sort of talk about like that beautiful first session where your mom came in to help you with your grandfather and your nephew, is that right, Micah?
Mm-hmm.
So was there like a process with you, like after they had passed, you sort of like communing with them and asking them to be a part of your spirit team? Did they sort of make themselves known to you in spirit prior to that? Or was there like any sort of process at all? Or did you sort of just like sense that they were there with you? How did that kind of work?
That's a great question. With Micah, he passed when I was just beginning to really awaken and actively connect with spirit. And so I was on this quest to help my sister and her family understand that he's okay, right? I wanted to bring them comfort to try and connect with him. And so, of all places, of course, it was the forest. I was on my bike, and I just was like, okay, Micah, if you're here, please show me how you passed. And he did, to the point of like, I needed to tell, like, he was squeezing my chest and, I couldn't breathe. And like, I finally just said to him, okay, I get it. Enough. I felt it. And then, from there, he was showing me where he is. And he was showing me that he has this ability to be everywhere and anywhere. And that all he has to do is think of a place and he's there. Right. And so when I was connecting with him, he was showing me all of these beautiful places. He was on a sailboat. He was in France. He was just anywhere he wanted to be. And then from there, it just developed a relationship, and really just authentically happened because I always called him my grandfather. From a very early age, I lost him when I was 5, and I was deeply connected with him. And I just knew that he was around me. I would see him in every house I would live in. I would see him standing by my bed or standing on the stairs. And so he was just always there. So when I began to do my mediumship and my readings, it just made sense. He was my protector, my big spirit guide, if you will. And so I wanted him there. And so I began to ask Micah if he wanted to join my team. And he comes through, and his role is different. My grandfather's there. He shakes his head and rolls his eyes at me every time I call him in. And he says, he's like, you don't need me. You're doing this alone. You know that, right? Like, I'm not doing much for you other than the support that you feel that you need from me. Because I always ask, I call them in, I'm like, please keep my frequency high and allow me to channel clear and concise messages from spirit. So his role is just probably like a little security blanket, whereas Micah comes in and he helps me with any like new souls that come through, which is interesting because he was a very innocent soul as well. He has that role. And as far as mom is just like, right now, I feel like she's just observing. I think she's just finding it all very fascinating what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like your nephew has got like this spicy kind of like fun attitude.
Yeah.
Like that's his energy vibration is very like fun loving, and he kind of energetically uplifts the session.
Yeah, he's very mischievous.
Yeah.
He's light, he's airy. And souls that are coming through that might be nervous to come through, he, I think, is sort of supporting them and saying, hey, she's okay. You can trust her.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. So I have a question. This is Lynn. And you and I have talked about this, Melissa, about my dad. My mom and dad both passed many years ago, actually. And although I had some grief with my dad, I feel like it was covered up with a lot of anger. And it still kind of is. I don't know that I've worked through the grief of him not being here anymore because I'm so mad at him. And so how do you navigate that with your clients?
First of all, I'm so sorry that you're still working through this. I know how difficult it can be when, we think of terms of people who lose loved ones and they had a really beautiful relationship, and that grief is just sorrow and missing them. But when it comes with mixed emotions that we feel guilty about feeling because they are gone, right? That's a whole different ballgame. And first and foremost, I say give yourself grace. Allow yourself to work through those emotions, those feelings, those belief systems that you developed with him. And as far as bringing closure, it can be difficult. I'll be in session and let's say your dad came through, and he would come through, by the way, because they want to bring you closure. They want to give you an opportunity to understand your soul contract that you held with him in this lifetime. Right. And the lessons that he was meant to teach you, and to explain to you if he had acted any other way, then that lesson wouldn't have been learned. Those experiences that your soul wanted to experience in this lifetime, although not good ones necessarily, wouldn't have been moved through. So They come through he now sees the bigger picture. He understands the role he had to play and the fact that you actually asked him to play it, right? And that can be really difficult to hear, that we actually asked our Father to be the way he was with us and to hurt us in the way that he did. Yeah. And to make us feel like we were insignificant, not seen and not heard. But look at the beauty that grew from that, Lynn.
Yeah, it's like he's sitting right beside you right now.
Yeah, he's talking to me. And
yeah, I'm sure he is.
And that it's okay to be angry. Did he call you sugar?
My grandfather called me sugar. I'm sure my grandfather's there with him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's here because he's calling you. There's an older gentleman calling you sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants you to understand that this is an opportunity for you, first of all, to go back and understand why you're so angry. And he's saying you're also angry because he left, because you didn't have closure.
That's
you didn't
true.
have the opportunity to say all the things that you wanted to say to him.
Yeah, because they were nasty.
Yeah. And he's acknowledging that. And he's like, you're justified in feeling everything. And he's so sorry you didn't have that opportunity. But he wants you to understand the growth and the evolution of your soul that happened because of the way he was with you. You wouldn't be standing here, a resilient, strong, and empowered woman, and with an empathy and heart like no other.
Amen.
He didn't treat you the way that he did.
I believe that.
He's saying, in a sense, my love, I did you a favor.
Yeah.
And I know that's a tough one.
Yeah.
And the thing is, clients will be like, oh, I don't want to talk to them. right? They'll come through
Yeah, I've
and they'll
had
be like,
clients
"Oh,
say that to me before. They're like,
yeah,
I don't want to talk to that person.
no, I don't
Yeah,
want to talk."
same.
Oh,
And
but Melissa,
you know, a lot of-
you were the conduit of that for me.
oh, I was?
Yes, when I had my reading with you, my grandmother had passed away maybe 2-3 years before that. And I mean, she was the kind of woman when I got the news that she passed away, I went and put salt on the doors. Like, she does not get access to this energy. And I had told my spirit guides under no circumstance is she to access my energy at all, ever. And so in the morning that I had the reading with you, of course, I'm talking to my guides and I'm like, I give you full reign to give Melissa any information that she needs for my healing. And the first thing you said to me is, there's this little woman with white hair and she's feisty and she's running up to me with a white flag. And I'm like, that witch, she came in the back door. And I invited her because I told my guides, let me give Melissa whatever she needs.
Yeah. Careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a prime example of what happens. And there's a lot of mediums I know that will just be like, oh, okay, well, we won't talk to them. That's not me, because that's not my job. Like, I'm not there to play God, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm there as the conduit, and I've made an ethical oath that I am just the messenger and I will not filter anything. So
Yeah.
I have to let them speak, because oftentimes it brings a beautiful closure, or at least an understanding.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, they're there because they really, a lot of them come through, you guys, and they're literally on their knees asking for forgiveness. And it's not for them, because they don't need it any longer. They are not even attached to that lifetime anymore. They're back to their oversoul, back to that beautiful love, Christ consciousness, right? But they know that you need to forgive, because if you don't, you're stuck.
Right. And they know the amount of healing that you'll get from them just acknowledging that they now see
Yes.
how they were and how what they did affected you, and
Yes.
that they just have been given a different perspective. That for me was the understanding that you talk about, is like, okay, at least she's seen it from my perspective at this point. And that helped me let go of a lot of stuff.
Exactly. Because you're finally getting the acknowledgement that you've been craving, right?
Mm-hmm.
For them to understand and say, yes, I did that. And I am so very sorry, right? Because they would have had a life review, seeing and feeling over and over your moments of hurt and betrayal and trauma. So they understand it completely, probably better than you do. Yeah. It's very powerful.
Makes you want to live your life right. So you don't have to go through that life review and think about all the people you've hurt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I have a question really quick, Melissa. This is Aaron again. So at the very beginning of this year, I started doing kind of like channeled sessions, like with clients. And so of course you have that, like your human mind, like 3D ego coming in of like, well, what if nothing comes through? Or what if you can't connect? Or what if this message doesn't mean anything to this person or whatever? And I sort of bypassed that. And my very first session, I think still was, at least to me, was the most like validating and powerful one out of the ones I've done so far. And I kind of like what you were describing at the beginning, like there's something so special and just loving about connecting with source for someone else, right? Because you're helping the other person connect with source and with maybe a loved one that's passed or with a message that they need, but you're also healing yourself in that session or in those messages that are coming through. So I suppose my question is, for little baby mediums like me, and I'm sure some of our readers that this will resonate, listeners that'll resonate with, what is some advice or anything with you doing this for a while now that you would give to like younger Melissa that was just starting out to try to help folks or take on clients?
Well, I would say I would emphasize the need to protect your energy and your space before and after sessions. And what I mean by that, Aaron, is that oftentimes when we're just beginning, and myself included, I went in guns a blazing, right? I was like, I am open.
Yeah.
for everything. And I never want to turn this off because it's amazing. It's amazing to access those realms. It's amazing to be able to connect with spirit and to bring the validation and comfort and healing to others. But what I began to understand was, if I don't honor and protect my energetic space and boundaries, then they don't stop coming.
Yeah.
And so what I was finding was, for example, I would wake up and, in the morning, and I would wake up feeling suicidal, literally. Like I'd wake up like not wanting to be here, like depressed and crying and like just heavy emotions.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, what is going on? This isn't me. And lo and behold, my first session, there would be someone that obviously died from suicide coming through. So what was happening is I was starting to be so open that I was picking up the spirit even before I was connecting with them. And so what I say to you is it's almost like you can develop like a muscle memory when you're beginning your ritual before you're going to connect for clients of like turning that dimmer. I always say like it's like a dimmer switch, right? You're going to pull that dimmer switch up and your frequency is up. You are stating your heart is open, your third eye is open, your throat is open to speak clearly. I even go as far as asking a spirit of divine love and light. I give them permission to use me as a physical medium, to speak and move through me. And then when that session is done, I clear and I close so that I am now going to be back into my Melissa state of consciousness, and I'm not going to be accessed by other spirits, light and dark, without my knowledge.
Yeah,
Does
I
that
think
make sense?
I'm
does.
sorry, I
Yeah,
don't mean
thank
to
you for that.
interrupt, but it's like I have to be careful to shut myself down when I go in the grocery store anywhere because they will just like come up to the grocery cart and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "No."
I get that a lot at the grocery store, the clerks, when they're putting through my groceries, and then there'll be like grandparents or parents standing behind them and wanting me to give them messages. And I'm like, no, this is not going to happen today. I'm not going to be that person.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was kind of fun, but then I was like, "Oh my, y'all are wearing me out. Like it's too much. You have to close yourself down. You can't read for everybody on the planet."
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a ritual that you do whenever you close out, or is it just like an understanding that you have whenever you hang up with that client or when that client leaves your space that it's done?
Well, there's a few things. Like when I close, the closing prayer of the Akashic Records is designed to, first of all, close the realm. And it's really interesting when I do it. Personally, I see it like an elevator. I'm coming down floors. I'm coming down to our dimension here. And when I'm literally seeing the loved ones waving goodbye. And it's beautiful. Like it's like I'm leaving, that floor, and they're just wanting to give their loved one a last little send off. So I do that to make sure their records are closed because you don't want to leave them open, right?
Yeah.
But then I do have a ritual where I literally just through breath work, I'll just sit and exhale, and through intention state, I give back and release anything energetically that isn't for my highest good that I may have picked up during this session back to divine love and light. And then I call in source once again, and I see this beautiful orb of protection around myself. And I state that only divine love and light may permeate that space. And then I feel protected and I can go on to the next session.
So when you're in a session with a client, you're accessing the records every time, even if it's a reading or an energy healing session, you're still going into the records every time that you do a session with a client?
If it's a reading, yes. And the reason why I love the Akash and the realm itself for readings is because it's such a beautiful platform. I mean, I could probably separate and just do mediumship readings and then Akashic record readings where you go into past lives. But I love clients being able, why not give them it all, right? Like it's possible. So I do just go into the Akash and allow their team to filter through me anything that they want them to know today and allow those deceased loved ones to come through as well. When I'm doing my energy healings, it's more of a shamanic quantum healing that I do. And so I do not access their Akashic records because I am literally just connecting with their soul and with their ancestors and their own spirit team and angels.
That's interesting because with the type of mediumship that I do, it's just I'm going up and I'm connecting with loved ones. But I think I know what I need to do next. I got to take a class with Melissa and learn how to do the Akashic records.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Well, it's coming up, you guys.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. I'm going to do one in May. So there you go.
Month, Brenda.
It is. It's my birthday month in May.
Gemini.
Maybe I need to give myself a present.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Lynn has learned so much from doing your classes and courses and has inspired us to want to dive a little bit deeper as well.
Oh, I love that. I would love to have any of you join me in class. That would be amazing for sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch a little bit on, if we can, on ways that people, who are wanting to connect with a deceased loved one. Oftentimes we feel like only mediums or intuitives have that ability, but that's just not the case. Anyone can, even when we're in the depths of grief. It is possible. And in fact, they're around us more than when we're not grieving because they want to make sure we're okay and they want to support us. So if you guys are okay with that, I could talk a little bit about that.
Would love it.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah.
Okay. So it's really pretty easy to connect in the sense of, I always tell people to find a picture of your loved one and to look into the eyes of their soul in that picture. So look into their eyes, and that will organically get you into your heart space because you love them or you have some kind of emotion about them. And then once you can feel that connection, I say it's close your eyes and begin to imagine them in detail. So imagine their smell, their voice, their laugh, any quirky mannerisms they had. And then once you have that image in your mind's eye, go to a happy place that you had with them. So a memory that you have of them where you felt good. And once again, begin to construct that memory in detail. So if, for example, I always give the example of if it's perhaps your grandmother that you baked with and you're standing, you're a young child and you're standing on a chair up by the counter and you've got a wooden spoon that you're stirring the chocolate cake batter with, and she's letting you lick that wooden spoon. And that's the best feeling in the world because your mom would never let you do that, right? Yeah. So, details like that. With me, when I first began to connect with my grandfather, I would be he had this old, it was probably in the 60s, those old cars. I think it was a Chrysler. It was blue. And in fact, Lynn, I think when my grandfather came through, you saw me with him in that car.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool because that's my first memory place with him. And I'm in the front seat and I'm probably about 4 and I'm humming and I say, "Oh, I'm not a really good hummer." And my grandfather looks at me with the most love I could ever imagine and says, "I think you're an incredible hummer." And that memory, it just, my heart just bursts because someone sees me, someone loves me that much, right?
Yeah.
That beautiful unconditional love. And that is where I go when I want to connect with him. I mean, obviously now I can connect with him anytime because I've developed that intuition and that third eye, right? But to begin with, I say start with a memory, get very detailed about it. And when you're there, just allow them to speak to you. Don't judge it. Don't doubt it. And just allow them to connect and come through. And you'll be amazed at the conversations you can have with them.
I love that so much.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like talking on the phone. That's how when I talk to my mom, I'll often talk with her when I'm walking. And it literally is like a phone conversation. Like she talks and then I talk. And, I think people have a misconception about spirit and how they connect. And if we, when we hear them auditorily, it really is like someone's just talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their voice in our head. And many of us think, oh, am I going crazy? Am I just making that up? Right?
Or that's my ego. That's my ego because I want it so much.
Exactly. Yeah. But here's the thing, guys. A really good test is to ask them a question. And the answer will come through before you've finished asking that question. And if it's ego, you're going to have a pause because your brain is going to have to think of an answer.
Oh, that's a great exercise.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you can begin to remove that doubt and just trust that it's them. The other thing is to look for signs. I know that's a biggie with everybody. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But be very detailed. If you're going to ask for a sign, if you're going to ask for a bird, be specific. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one story I love to tell is I asked my mom for a sign one day when I was walking because I'm like, where are you? She was dropping, my mom loves to drop feathers for me. And they're always white feathers, of course, because of the white dove, right? But I was walking and I was frustrated with her because I didn't feel her close. And I felt like I wasn't connecting as much as I was with her and almost angry, kind of like calling her to task. And I said, Mom, like, come on, you got to give me something here. Like, it's got to be something big. Okay. Like, show me. I know you can do this. You're capable of doing this. Show me something. And lo and behold, I look up the path. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know that big old field I walk in, the wide open field. Yep. And I look up and I see this white dog sitting there, like not even moving. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I'm looking around, like, where's the owner of this dog? Why is this dog not moving? So I just keep walking. I get my dogs on the leash because I'm like, well, they're going to run up to this dog, right? Thinking it's the dog. And as I stand up to go again, after getting their leashes on, the dog's gone, disappeared. And I'm looking and I'm like, well, that's weird. How is that possible? Like it's a long field. I would see this dog, right? And in that moment, I asked Mom, I said, Mom, was that you? And she said, I always wanted to come back as your dog.
I have a great story. If you guys want to hear my story.
Oh, please, Brenda.
So my friend, Michelle, once again.
Shout out, Michelle.
Yeah, I talked about her in the last episode. But she has a friend in Canada. And I don't remember if it was her friend's mother or father that passed away, but she came home from the funeral. This is Canada, right? There was a peacock sitting on top of her house, right?
Oh my God.
You ain't got peacocks up there, do you?
No,
the zoo.
Yeah, right. So it sat on the top of her house or would be in the yard for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And she finally decided to call like a rescue place to come and take this peacock and take care of it because she was, what was she supposed to do? And they had scheduled to come that day and suddenly the peacock disappeared.
Wow.
Just saying. Yeah.
Spirit.
That's spirit.
Yeah. It's like that spirit, right? It's stuff that you can't possibly explain in your logical mind.
Right.
Right. That's how you know it's them. Because let's face it, I think the popular ones are they leave us dimes, right? There's feathers, there's butterflies, there's birds, and they will send us those signs, but sometimes it's just a bird.
Mhm.
And that's the problem, right? Is to tell the difference. Like, how do
Right.
we tell the difference? Is that just an owl that I'm seeing today in the woods?
Right.
Or is that my grandfather?
Right.
And the difference is because you'll think of them instantly. That's how you do it.
That makes sense.
That makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Even though you do think of them instantly, it's still why it's so easy to doubt that because it could just be a dime. I mean,
Exactly.
you did have that feeling, but then again,
And birds are everywhere.
Right.
And yeah, but the
Right,
Canadian
exactly.
peacock on the roof. I don't know about that one, Michelle.
That's unfortunately our ego and our doubt that begins to really murky those waters. And I got to tell you guys, like, our loved ones get disappointed when we doubt them. Right.
exactly.
Mhm.
Well, and
And so, yeah,
it's all about intention anyway. So if you find that dom, let it be from your loved one. Let it remind you of them. That's what brings them in. It's kind of not so much the other way around. Sometimes it's like
exactly.
if that thing reminds you of them, let it be from them. Have that joy in that moment and move on.
And thank them. Right.
Right.
But that's
Mhm.
the other thing. Like, it takes a lot of energy for them to learn how to connect with us, just like we have to work on our energy. They have to learn how to navigate that, how to lower their frequency and meet us in that beautiful, I call it the space between worlds. And so oftentimes, if they're new, if they've just recently passed and they're putting on their training wheels again, they too are going through a process of like figuring this out. And when they work to turn, especially when it's like electrical stuff, like turning our lights on and off or the TV, like that's really difficult for them. So take a moment instead of like second guessing and just be like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate this. You're incredible. And could you do that again? Right? Because they will. And then there's your validation. So, for example, I've had my nephew's a big electrical guy. Like, when he first passed, would turn our TV on and off at night, or he would turn my home pod in my healing space on and off. Or so it's funny because when he was little, he was fascinated with the outlets, so much so that he would we were like surprised he hadn't electrocuted himself, right? Yeah.
Oh.
And he would always want to figure out the electrical, right? So I'm like, of course you're an electrical guy turning lights on and off with us. So we would say, Micah, that's amazing. Can you do it again? And sure enough, like a few minutes later, the light would flick on and off again. So like, play with them, right? Connect with them. Allow them to show you what they can do. And
Yeah.
then they'll just be more validated that, yep, you trust me, you know it's me, and we have this connection and relationship.
That's amazing. Now, I have a question of sorts.
Yeah.
So we'll just, my grandmother Ruby, who you've obviously met because
I love
she's
Ruby.
loud,
She's
she's
amazing.
loud and proud. A few weeks ago, I have her watch on my altar, thanks to you saying, put their stuff out. And I'd never opened the box that it was in. And I have had this box since the 70s. Now, I'm dating myself. Okay. But I opened that box and I was going to pull her watch out because I had thought of something about her watch that she actually showed me. It had her name on the faceplate. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But then I looked at the box. It's actually a box inside of a box. Now, in the 70s, I grew up in Georgia. I'd never been to North Carolina. But when I opened that box and the box inside of the box had Greensboro, North Carolina on it. And that's where we're sitting right now.
What?
Where we all met each other.
Wow.
Yeah. So how does that make sense? Like, how did that happen? Like,
Grandma Ruby's been behind it all from the start.
like, did she
So where was it written, Lynn?
It's on the box. There's a little metal box.
Okay.
And it's printed on the box, and it's some like parts place from Greensboro, North Carolina.
And you've never noticed that before?
I've never noticed it until like it's a month ago maybe. I pulled it out and we were looking at it, and I text everybody at the Woo Crew, and I was like, "Hey, what the hell?" Like, did Grandma? Did she? I mean, like, I know she didn't do that after she was dead, but how did she do that before she was dead? I mean, I know she's magical and all that, but
yeah. That's so interesting.
isn't that weird? Or maybe it's just a
I'm
synchronicity.
trying to talk to her right now, like trying to do a little sidebar. I'm like, what's going on with that?
It makes me wonder, were the words always there, or did they just appear when you needed it? But that's another episode.
Kind of what I'm getting. And I don't want to freak your listeners out, but I can tell you another story about this example.
Oh.
But I'm getting from her that you needed proof.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she gave it to you.
Yeah.
Like this is like, it's a little mini miracle.
But I mean,
right?
at that time, all the synchronicities that we were getting,
Yeah.
and all the energy that was moving among this.
Sorry.
Yeah.
She's telling me, sorry, I have to interrupt you, Chandra. She's literally telling me to tell you, Lynn, that she wanted to validate the fact that you were always meant to be where you are right now.
Oh.
That's what Chandra's going to say. So it's perfect.
Thank you, Grandma Ruby.
Yeah.
And our listeners are buckled up. We've all been through trauma together. So, Melissa, if you want to share the story after you get done chatting with Ruby, you're on the air. It's all you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's incredible, Lynn. Yeah. She just wanted you to understand that you were always, that was your journey. It was divinely led. You're meant to be exactly where you are. Like, she's literally saying, welcome to the party. Right?
I love that.
To be with you all. Right?
Yeah, she visits a lot.
Yeah, she's got you. Like, it's literally, she's showing me this image, like you're literally sitting on a rocket and like you're just going to the stars. Like, she's like, just buckle up because there's so many good things coming for you.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Grandma Ruby came to me a few weeks ago in a dream.
I wanted to say my example, which is another freaky example of how spirit can like change words. We were at my mom's, trying to do her arrangements for her cremation. And we were at the funeral home, my sister and I. And the individual that was helping us there had her little name tag on. And I kept looking at the name tag because, her name was Lorraine. And the name tag kept morphing into Dorothy. Okay. Like, yeah, Dorothy. And I'm like, that's so weird. And I'm like, okay, I know I haven't slept, and I know I'm trying to like justify what's going on. And I'm like, I'm probably really losing my marbles right now. I'm just like, and then it would go back to Lorraine and then Dorothy. And so then Dorothy, her sister, is now standing behind her, wanting me to give her messages. And so I'm like, so Lorraine, this might sound really strange, but did you have a sister named Dorothy? And she starts crying and just bawling. And then it turned into like basically a reading. But the interesting thing, yeah, I know, right? Was my sister. I told her afterwards, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you saw that too?" Like, my sister saw the name tag and the name Dorothy.
Wow.
Perfect.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is crazy.
That is a weird story.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I know. So,
Makes me not want to go to the funeral home ever again. Or maybe I just want to go hang out there.
Let me tell you, like, my whole body, I don't know about you guys, but when I go into funeral homes, it's like I am like being electrocuted. Like the
Yeah.
Mhm.
energy is beyond comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw, like, it was ridiculous what I saw. I saw like all these souls lining up to be cremated. I saw like all of them, like they're, standing there chatting, like chit-chatting, like watching basically their bodies. It was just ridiculous.
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
get me out of here.
You know, the first time that I ever donated blood, they had the blood drive at a funeral home. You cannot
my
make it up.
God.
You
Oh my
cannot make
God.
it up. So I was like, all right, well, whatever. Maybe they'll give me some embalming fluid. So I went and I was like, I'm determined that I'm going to give blood because I wanted to give back to humanity. And so I got there and they had me on the table, and that's what happened. There were people everywhere. Like I could hear them like breathing over my shoulder, and they would walk by and I'd be like, oh my God, like they were everywhere. And I said, I'm not going to do that again.
And the phlebotomist
Yeah,
the whole
no.
time is like, ma'am, are you okay? We haven't even put the needle in yet. You're seeming to hyperventilate.
Yeah, they're interesting places
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Was it me and you that went to the cemetery the other night? Well, who was that? Oh, was that
Parallel life.
Brenda? Okay, I'm sorry. This is Lynn. Brenda just turned and looked at me like, what are you talking about?
We went during the daytime.
Oh, I'm sorry. We went during the daytime, but at the cemetery, like you could see me and Brenda were walking around and you could see like,
There were kids running around.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
vortex
And
energy.
There was vortexes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
As crazy as it sounds, anyone who wants to begin to open and be connecting, cemeteries and funeral homes are an amazing thing to know.
You heard it here first, folks.
Because you can't help but feel their energy. There's, it's so strong. And there's like so many fascinating things that you can see, right?
Yeah, I actually love to visit cemeteries,
Me too.
the peaceful ones. Yeah.
Yeah. I came across when I was there with the same day with my sister, and we were just standing waiting to finish up the preparations kind of in the entrance. And of course I was seeing the people lining up and everything, but then there was this young boy and girl. They were sitting on what was like a makeshift old bench, and the little girl was blonde and she had little blonde braids. They were really cute. They looked like they were dressed in like the early 1900s. And I started talking to them telepathically, and I'm like, hey, like, why are you here? And they're like, well, this was our homestead. And I'm like, oh. And they showed, me their farmland and their farmhouse. And they're like, this was our home. And anyway, I told my sister on the way home. And of course, she then started to look up the land and what happened on it. And because they told me that they were, unfortunately, they burned to death. Their house burnt down. And sure enough, my sister looked it up, and there was a dairy farm there. The house burnt down. Like everything that the kids told me came true. And so then I was like, wow, then why are they still there? That, I wanted to go back and cross them over, right? I was like, I felt bad that they were stuck. And so that's the other thing too, right? Is that as much as we grieve here and we feel stuck and we can't move forward with our lives, a lot of times, depending on the trauma and the way in which we pass, there's spirits that are stuck as well.
And that's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole nother bottle of Prosecco.
Right.
Hashtag the crossover.
That's what I would do in the grocery store if they were coming up to me constantly. Go to the light. Go to the light. Go to the light. Let me get my broccoli. Go to the light.
Spirits on aisle 4, aisle 5.
And aisle 6.
We should totally do an episode where we'll just call in spirits that want to cross over, and we can cross them over.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that would be
that gave me chills.
so much fun.
And what date are you available, Melissa?
Yeah. Look at our calendars together.
That's an affirmative. I think that would be amazing.
That would be fun.
That would be
that would be fun.
amazing.
Yeah.
Not only because we'd be doing some really good work, but like the
Absolutely.
listeners probably would want to hear the process, right?
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. All right, we're
For
going to put you on the calendar.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
for that,
Amazing.
'cause that would be incredible.
That would be fun.
All right. I think on that note, maybe we should wrap up this episode since we are going to come back and do some more fun
So we
things.
can start planning the next one.
Right?
I did hear her commit, y'all.
Yeah.
We have it recorded.
Absolutely. I'm in. I love that stuff. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
So, Melissa, for our listeners at home who are not up your way, what if they're interested in booking a session with you or in becoming one of your students, like Sweet Lynn, and it sounds like in May, Sweet Brenda? What are some ways that they can kind of reach out and contact you and get more information about your services?
They can head to my website. So Melissa Sparrow Healing, melissasparrow.com. And then they can also go to my Instagram page at Melissa Sparrow Healing. And there's a lot of content on there in regards to intuition. I always launch and give information about all of my classes and workshops, but everything's on the website. So their best bet is to first go there and then, of course, join me on Instagram. I love to interact with my followers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I highly recommend people following you on Instagram. You put out some amazing content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure we have all that information in the show notes for everybody as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, guys. This has been amazing to sit down with all of you. I love you, each and every one of you.
No,
We love you too.
To be continued.
Yes. All right. Have a healing week wherever you are and connect with your loved ones in spirit in whichever way feels best for you. We love you guys and we'll see you next time.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Peace out.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you for joining us today. Please follow and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review. It's so easy to do and such a huge help for us. We appreciate your interactions so much. Want to join us at our table? Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and join our Facebook community. If you've enjoyed this content and wish to support us, take a look at our Patreon page. All information and links will be in our podcast description. Catch you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM. Women's voices amplified.